Yeah, I'm sure you saw the title, and I'm sure you're bored with everyone throwing their hat in the ring on this topic. So just add me to that list, I guess. Since beta released, I've been enjoying trying out the endgame offerings Blizzard opened up, and I definitely do have my takes on those, and enhancement especially, believe me. But the bigger distraction for me now that we're heading toward a release was getting some sort of UI in order. I also kind of felt like if I didn't bring it up directly, any footage that I did use would be 50% questions about what I'm using. I'm not going to sell you a streamer UI pack here. I'm not going to exaggerate and try to sway your opinion if you feel strongly in either direction. I'm just going to give you the honest opinion from a player point of view, what I ran into when setting this up. It's going to be subjective. I'm going to ramble a lot, but hopefully it's a different perspective that might help prepare some of you before things break. Or alternatively, stop you from worrying since none of what I mention even affects you. So I'm going to start with the positives because I've basically just seen two extreme takes repeated over and over since the started, which is you can basically just build a retail UI, or it's an add-on apocalypse and literally nothing works and oh my god, the game's over. And right now, it kind of just sits right in the middle of both of those. It's nowhere near that extreme in either direction, but it does bear talking about what it's actually like if you really want to fine-tune and tailor a UI like you would do on live. Basically, Blizzard went lying, you can skin just about anything. There are some limitations as to what you can do to certain frames that are particularly sensitive with information like, say, raid frames or the damage meter, but you can generally get things looking somewhere close to a retail setup. The operative word in all of this, though, which is sometimes missed with those screenshots saying that it's just retail, is look. It will look like the retail UI, but in some cases you can't address the function or touch certain things lest you risk nudging into a secret value, at which point, unlucky. Some examples of these are things like, say, divining a big number for display. If you want 1,000,000 to show as 1M, you have to hope that Blizzard themselves provided that number under the hood for you to attach because the number just can't have simple math like that applied to it. This rule set extends to just about anything in Midnight. You can see here I've kind of got a bit of skin in on all of the parts, and it behaves, but there's kind of a reason, especially that the seasoned high-quality devs you've seen carrying the scene for years and years are being cagey. I don't want to speak for them because I don't know all of them, but the handful I have spoke to, it does kind of seem like at any point when you're working on something, the function that you planned that might be entirely innocent might just bump into a hidden landmine in the API. That secret's there, and oh, well, you just can't do what you were planning to do. And that's a little bit awkward. When you pair that with the beta API having a real slow burn on trickle updates, including ones that have been promised since basically the start, where they still aren't here, you can kind of understand why they'd be cagey about even bothering to get started until they're basically down to the wire and locked in. That does kind of mean, though, when it does get to that point, you're probably going to see all of these really good high-quality add-ons from the same people that you've seen doing it for years pop up with very specific functions that will just work. So I wouldn't be immediately panicking, and if anything, I'd kind of echo what I've seen from quite a few other people, is if you aren't planning on going on the beta right now to do testing for something very specific, just wait until it's closer, because it's going to take you ages. It probably will break between now and then, and you might not even get it looking like you want it to. Admittedly, in all of this, I'm basically like the example child of a non-standard UI retail player. I'll open up my retail UI right now. If you make fun of the lines again, guilty, I swear to God, I'll use them in Midnight too. It's a clear example of someone who made a UI 15 years ago when I was doing Sinestro Progress, and every time there was a new thing that I needed an add-on for, I bolted it on, and there it was. That add-on did that thing. I stick with older, worse add-ons, mostly out of habit and because I'm old. And Midnight is kind of forcing me to get rid of those add-ons and start using the more proprietary ones that are going to be shared, because the other ones just aren't going to get updated anymore. That part is kind of cool, I guess, in my case, but it probably doesn't mean much to any of you. It does mean, though, I can say from experience that where Midnight seems to be heading is a whole lot of siloed add-ons where you'll have to update them as and when things break, and it can get pretty boring and it can get pretty frustrating when the one that you like suddenly isn't being updated anymore, entirely reasonably because the dev doesn't play the game anymore or something, and then you have to go and find a new one. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. That's probably what you're going to have to get used to, instead of having things like LVUI or entire week horror packs or anything else that always stay updated and will always just do what you want when you log in. Those are the things that if you as a player are looking ahead at Midnight and you're kind of worried and you use those things and you're thinking, well, I've seen all of these screenshots and it does look fine. It is true. You can make a pretty reasonable UI on there. The difference is, how much time are you willing to invest to get that to work compared to what you do on live? Because right now, it's definitely going to be higher than that. I do think we'll eventually have all these bases covered by add-ons, and there'll be an individual proprietary one for each different part of the UI to make it look good. And everyone will just use that one or some sort of amalgamation of them, especially since, I mean, hopefully the API changes that have been coming this week that are still delayed from weeks before actually hit. And maybe that does open up some of these to just sort of let rip and get them out there. But there are a few areas in particular that I kind of just despair about right now. I'm pretty sure that you've seen almost everyone else talk about at least one of these. And the first one is nameplates. Nameplates are the kind of thing that have been deferred to add-ons since forever. And the Blizzard ones on there, they have improved them a little bit, but they've always been pretty terrible. And I'm no saint. I use neat plates because of the way it looks, and I know that plate is better. But in the case of the Blizzard ones, the really simple thing that add-ons cannot fix, no matter how much good add-ons like Platinator that I use right here can improve it, is the behavior of the nameplates. If they go all over the place and there's nothing that you can do to alter that behavior, because those are very locked down and hidden, you get to play a really fun game every pack of Chase the Wizard as he goes zipping around every corner of your map. And that's really boring, and it's really disorienting too. There are things that we are seeing that they slowly start to de-restrict, but if they can't get the logic on stacking nameplates, making sure that you can actually see what's going on when there's a crowd, then I don't know, nameplates are just going to be unworkable, and everyone is going to be complaining about this for an entire season of Midnight until it works. The other one, I've seen quite a few people, like Zorthus did a video. I know that Blizzard made a blue post about it. The damage meter, it's just really not good. There's quite a few reasons, like it doesn't provide you with accurate information in the breakdown. You can't change the tracking effect to things that are pretty standard tracking, like death logs, damage taken, or enemy damage taken. These are the kind of things that, like, everyone has used that at some point in the meter to either feel good about themselves or to actually check something important. And I mean, I don't think that the Blizzard one needs to have the, like, feature creep incarnate level number of things that details tracks that really no one actually really cares about. But holy, it needs to be way better than what's on there, because once it actually released after not being on the alpha at all, and we saw it in action, I'm pretty sure everyone just sort of looked agape at it and thought, oh, right, well, that's what we're dealing with. That one in particular, especially because it's kind of a mini game that people like to look at the damage meters. If that doesn't get fixed, you're going to be hearing about that as well for the whole expansion. And there's nothing that any add-on or anything else can do, because whatever's in that container is in that container, and you aren't manipulating the data in it. The last one, I'm sure this issue is probably right at the top, actually, for a certain subset of players. In my case, I still think it's really bad, but obviously I'm not hit the worst by it, and that's the raid and the group frames. Raid and group frames are the kind of thing where you really do want to filter out so you can see the things that are important, or display it in a way that's comfortable for you to navigate in combat. And right now, both of these, but especially the raid frames, are an absolute nightmare in gameplay. You can have entire raid filled with icons for your raid buff. You can have like single debuffs be giant and then on everyone, but you can't really filter or alter anything. I know that Blizzard have said that they're going to add improvements to this, but at the end of the day, the way that raid frames look, they are the kind of things that are inherently imposed to them having these secret values and blocking customization. So I don't know how far they'll pull back to the point where they become nice to use, but we'll see. I hope they get it right, especially for the healer people, but this is one where I can only talk from the fact that as a DPS player, I found them really distracting, whereas normally I can build them to be need to know and useful. The last one is ultimately, it's very personal to me that I really was worried about this in the beta in general. It's how we manage our information display. I don't like the cooldown manager. I think it's extremely limited. And the main thing that concerns me with it is if there isn't someone at Blizzard who manually inputs the spells and configures them in a way that lets you track them effectively, like, I don't know, say, using the right spell ID when you have a talent. If that's not there, unlucky, no tracking. That is a huge potential forced error that could just be there on any given day. They rework a talent and they forget to change it. You just don't get tracking until someone wakes up and fixes it in there. I'm concerned about that. And based on how the cooldown manager works, there's almost no chance you're going to be able to put your own things in there to pull into the cooldown manager, like trinkets, potions, whatever. I think it's going to be locked to exclusively what Blizzard put in it, because every single spell that's in there has got its own unique ID that flags what it's allowed to show. Whether or not this actually bothers you, it kind of just comes down to personal things. Like, I look at my retail HUD, or whatever the people who make these weak horror things call it. It's built basically like training wheels. If I'm not executing something to the standard that I think I should be, or I can really noticeably see this one part of my gameplay is off, I can tweak something, increase the size, I can move it around, I can make it really focused so that I can't ignore it until I get it into my brain that I need to do this. I've been through enough reworks of this spec. That's basically how I approach every single set of changes. If I were going with purely the cooldown manager, there's no option to do that because it's so limited. There are a whole lot of different skinning tools and reorganizing things for the CDM that are out there. Quite a lot of them, they'll be great. They'll be perfect for a lot of people who just want the same sort of weak horror HUDs that they had. For me, it's nowhere near what I like to have in mine, even though, again, it's preference. So it might just not matter to you. Like in the beta here, I have an add-on that's built basically just for enhancement. It could be made for others, but yeah, this is built basically as a way of coming close to how I had my old weak horrors. It's kind of finicky to set up. I have no idea if it would work on different UI scales or whatever else, so I'm not really sure if I'll share it unless there's like a tidal wave of askers in the comments. Though it'll likely be a lot easier once Maelstrom gets unsecreted next week. But it also kind of gave me a glimpse of what I really hope doesn't come true in Midnight, which is that since it can basically rehouse the cooldown manager in a way that's very bespoke and you can fine-tune it, getting that tailored, organized setup like you could in weak horrors previously requires both for that add-on to already exist from someone in the first place, it has to work for my spec or the given spec that I'm playing on the day, and it needs to be updated if there's any special tooling to make up for shortcomings in the CDM. Like, obviously, this is still limited where there are certain things that if Blizzard doesn't provide you the information from the CDM, the action bar, or certain UI elements, you just can't show it. So you aren't going to get any really creative ways of finagling the pandemic timer if Blizzard has messed up and gave it the wrong number. But kind of, sort of, can get closer than you would expect you can. Deep down, though, I think what's getting lost, especially in the sort of war between we hate add-ons and add-ons are the best, is that when weak horrors goes, it's got nothing to do with all of the silly boss mod ones that were doing a lot of extra overhead stuff. Like it was making sure that you knew which market to go to, where to stand, where your next soak group was, when your dentist appointment was, how long it's been since you last groomed your dog. These are the kind of things that I don't think anyone really cared that weak horrors were doing deep down because they were kind of just really fancy boss mods. What people actually are going to miss, and that it's kind of weird that people are celebrating it, is being able to organize your combat HUD, or, I don't know, maybe hide a frame that Blizzard has got up. And you won't have that anymore because the framework for building things that weak horrors was is going to be gone. Like, if you can't figure out how to track something in-game, if that's an ability, an event timer out in the world, or, I don't know, like, your weekly profession knowledge, before you could just ask a buddy and they'd be like, oh, yeah, I've got a weak horror for that, and it's working, and, oh, right, great, I know exactly what I've done. Now, you realize that you haven't got it, and then you have to hunt for a specific add-on for that exact purpose and use that one. And damn, you really better hope that they kept it updated from then on, because then if it breaks, you need to find another one, and so on and so forth. Like, realistically, there will eventually be add-ons just like this one that'll do it for all specs. But they won't be nearly as easy to set up as they used to be, and they'll be built around working in spite of the cooldown manager's limitations, and not because the CDM is up to standard. My thoughts are a bit jumbled in all of this because basically it's been the hottest topic about the expansion for the last 2 months. But I think what I'm really trying to get to at the end of all that is it's a bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world. I'm going to be able to adjust to it, I'm pretty sure, and I think most of you are going to be able to as well. And that's to varying degrees as well, depending on your preference. But it is kind of workable with some effort. It's just the little things like, say, reminders for imbues or lightning shield falling off, or a big one for enhancement, just as an example. And some real fine-tuning customizations that are the kind of polish this feature really could have used to sell itself as, yeah, okay, I believe Blizzard can pull it off, and this is pretty good, rather than giving it that rushed out the door feeling that people are definitely noticing. I just really needed to get that off my chest before I did anything else, because if anything comes up about the UI, I kind of just need to have it somewhere that, yes, I have done a lot of UI stuff. No, I don't think it's that bad, but it's also not great either. Basically, don't believe everything that you hear, that everything's fine on there, but also don't believe everything from the people who say it's all awful. There are some really big problems, but I would imagine that most things kind of just will even out by the end of it. That does it for my ongoing boomer therapy session disguised as my World of Warcraft playing. So hopefully we're going to see a new beta update this week, and that'll have the API changes. Hopefully it doesn't break everything I have here, but if not, I'm sure there'll be other new things that we can do. And I really, really hope that there's going to be some enhancement changes so I can do actual videos on that, so that we actually still have a bit of raid testing left to try them out. You're welcome to go in the comments, flame me for thinking all this about add-ons, or if you agree with me, or if you think it's way worse than I think it is, then by all means let me have it, and I'll see you in the next one.